Welcome back. Now we're diving into how the national budget addresses the needs of Namibia's youth, particularly in areas such as education, employment, and skills development. With industries such as technology, entrepreneurship, and the creative sector gaining momentum, does the budget provide the right support for young people to thrive? Are there sufficient measures to tackle youth unemployment and to equip them for high-growth industries? Joining us is Phillipus Hamunyela, Vice President of NANSO, to break down the key provisions and what they mean for the future of Namibia's youth. Phillipus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Nina. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, just your thoughts overall on the budget. I'm sure you tuned in and watched, or if you didn't, you saw some of the figures afterwards. So, what are your thoughts?
Thank you for the question, Nina. I think the recently tabled budget really shows, or rather prioritizes, the new administration's commitment to the respective sectors as the allocation was done. I think for us as a student organization, I think we are thrilled with how the budget looks at the moment. I mean, the key theme of the budget was Beyond 35 for Prosperous Namibia. And I think it really outlines perhaps some of the steps that are able to take us truly to a place where we can say we're now living in a prosperous Namibia.
Yeah. Did you see the budget address the concerns of the youth of Namibia, particularly in the areas that I mentioned, education, employment, skills development?
I think, Nina, to be quite honest, I think they do. I think, and I'll dive into why, as an organization, we think they do. I mean, if you look at, for example, the education ministry, we're seeing a significant increase in the allocation in the education ministry. For example, if you take the basic education, we can see that basic education has now been allocated about 18 billion in funding, which for us, we think it's a great step towards improving the quality of basic education in the country. On top of that, if we look at higher education, we see about a 13% increase in the budget allocation between the previous year to the current year. And we also believe that that is a good sign. We really see it as making tertiary education more accessible. I mean, as an organization, our chant is always free, quality, accessible education. So every single step we're taking towards that, I think for us, puts a bright smile on our face. And I think if you take a look at, for example, in terms of youth development, we've seen an increase in the budget as well of about 45%. And a lot of this has been allocated to specific activities and initiatives to really ensure that there is some provision for the youth. So we believe that by prioritizing these sectors where we've seen an increase in budget, we think government is on the right step towards addressing those issues.
And also talk to us about, these industries that young people are interested in, technology, entrepreneurship, and of course, creative sectors. How does the budget speak, to these sectors?
Thank you very much for the question, Nina. I think for a lot, there isn't as much as we'd expected in terms of some of those sectors. But I think some of the very notable things to see in the budget. For example, we see that there has been a tax cut for micro, small, and medium enterprises, where the tax rate has then been reduced from 32% to 20%. We think that is a great enabler in small businesses succeeding. We also see an allocation in terms of sector-related projects and initiatives. I mean, if we look at agriculture and green jobs, government has allocated 2.6 billion towards that. So we think there is also an opportunity for young people to come up with creative opportunities and ideas. And I think another one that's also notable, Nina, is in the transport and infrastructure, where we see that about 2.7 billion has been allocated towards that. We believe that that also provides an opportunity for young people to emerge and participate in big sectors in the country. And we think these measures, and a few of which I haven't mentioned, really align with the trends that you've mentioned, specifically on green economies, digital transformation, and vocational skills training. But we think there's still a lot to be done. We think, and perhaps it creates room for government to be able to enunciate and bring up policies to better understand the budget. But we think so far government has done a good job in terms of addressing that as well.
All right, fantastic. Well, your final remarks this evening, Phillipus?
I think, thank you, Nina. Our final remarks are really just to say that in as much as the budget on paper sounds magnificent and we accept it and we welcome it, I think ours is just to continue emphasizing that it can't happen in isolation. I think if we continue platforms and discussion platforms, and just a note on that, we're actually planning an event soon to really dissect and unpack the national budget. And so we're calling on the public just to keep an eye on that. We will have pros and experts from different industries to help us unpack it.
Okay.
But ours is we really see the commitment from the new administration, and as an organization we pledge our support, and we really hope that we get to see the realization of this budget.
Phillipus, thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
Thank you, Nina. It was a pleasure.
Of course, on that note, we also come to the end of this evening's edition of the Daily Roundup. We're back tomorrow, same time and place. From myself and the team, it's good night, and thank you for watching.